Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black Girl Magic Book Chat, Halloween edition. I'm Larissa, the AARC coordinator for TCCL, and all month long I am bringing you books by Black and African American authors in the genres of thriller or horror or mystery, kind of all of that. Um, and I do it for two reasons. One, because I really enjoy Halloween. It has always been one of my favorite holidays or, activities to involve myself in. But even outside of that, I do think that not enough Black and African American authors get their just due in these genres. And so I wanted to highlight them. So here we are. This week's book was a bit of a wild ride. I've been referring to it as a mix of the movie Pleasantville meets Jordan Peele's Us meets V for Vendetta, which sounds kind of crazy, and it is a little bit. But there's elements, I feel like, of all of that in this book, all wrapped up in this pretty entertaining YA or young adult novel. So I read this book on my iPad. So I'll show you the cover. So I read this on the Libby app. So if you are a TCCL library holder, you have access to Libby, Libby. It is a free app. And all you need is your library card. And you can check out up to 10 books at a time, put books on hold, all of that. And so if you are a fan of ebooks and e-audiobooks and even magazines, that Libby app has all of that. So that's why I read this book. So you saw the cover, right? Like, fascinating cover. I am a person who reads the books by their covers or judges a book by its cover. So if I find the cover fascinating or pretty or interesting or any of that, I will pick it up. Not to say that I love the book, but I will pick it up and try it out. So great covers are for me. But so this book is called The Getaway by Lamar Giles, and it follows a 16-year-old boy named Jay, black boy, who lives with his parents in this place called Karloff County. And Karloff County is something of a haven for the people that live within the boundaries of this county. It is a self-sustaining county, so everything that you need is in this place. You don't have to leave it, because outside of these walls is chaos. The world has fallen, in a sense. There are extreme levels of poverty. People don't have food to eat. There's a rampant mistrust of government and a feeling of government not doing what it's supposed to do for the citizens. And so people are not having a good time outside of these walls. It's bananas. They don't tell much about Jay before he moved into Karloff County, and it is said that he's only been there a few years, a couple of years. But we know that before he was in Karloff County, his family was living in poverty and that life was extremely undesirable. He talks about just kind of how skinny he was because he didn't have food. And so when they get the opportunity to move into this place, this seemingly pleasant place, right? He is excited. According to Jay, there's no place like it. It is self-sufficient. It's a resort where the wealthy can come in and get away from what's going on outside of the walls. Jay and all of his friends, most of them black children, all work for different places in this resort. Like, for example, Jay's job is at an amusement park type of place. And they're all called helpers, which Jay, in his explanation of helpers, he thinks is somehow better than an employee. They're all happy to live here, knowing what's going outside, knowing that in this place, food is not scarce. In this place, technology is sufficient. In this place, even as a teenager, you guaranteed a job that you like, right? So the people who live here love it. And then one day, one of Jay's friends disappears. And this sets off a series of events that showcase the real reason for Karloff County. Like I said, the world outside of Karloff is already crazy. But around the time or the day before or the day of or the day after one of Jay's friends disappears, things just go off the rails. Citizens began attacking their government leaders for a lack of anything sustainable. Climate changes have ravaged the lands, and so tornadoes and all of those things have just kind of leveled the playing field or leveled the ground, not the playing field, leveled the ground. And society has completely collapsed. It's the apocalypse without zombies. Is that what the apocalypse is? it's the end of the world, but without zombies. Okay. Do apocalypses have zombies? Who's to say? But anyway, so it's chaos, right? Like people don't know where their next meal is coming from. People don't have homes. It's chaos. But inside these walls, that's not true. And inside these walls, this perfect world that Jay was living in, we find is not for him and the people that look like him. So the rich and the uber wealthy begin to enter Karloff and not leave. Because typically it's a resort, right? It's a getaway. So you have these rich people come in. Jay and his friends are the helpers. And so they're the employees who keep it running. And so they have to present this beautiful place to these people. But then they go, right? They're there for a few days and then they're off. But now these people aren't leaving. Now these people are living in homes that are 12 times nice as the one that Jay lives in. So the uber wealthy, they're called trustees. They come in and these helpers now have jobs that put them into complete servitude to the trustees. They have to do whatever is asked of them at the park. If the service is poor, there are consequences for these helpers that there was not before. And the jobs that they're asked to do run from what was normal at an amusement park, right, or a resort, to some things that are now insane. So, for example, Jay becomes a concierge to a family who treats him as if he's their son who had previously died, who had obviously died. And so he's their concierge, and so he lives with them through the week, and he only sees his own family on the weekends now. And while he's at the house of these people, he is completely under their mercy. He has to do exactly what he says to do. And he's got a better job because the ones that work in the public places have to deal with these new guests treating them, quite frankly, horribly, because now these guests, these trustees, have the ability to harm them, even electrocute them. So the helpers then have to wear like a wristband, an electronic wristband. And for poor service, the trustees can press a button and it shocks them. So they can they're literally electrocuting people now for this, for poor service or for being spoken to what the trustees consider wrong, any of that. So they are under the mercy of these rich, mostly white people. There's even, and so the book kind of goes through a lot of the ways that this changes, obviously, the morale of the place. There's instances of lynching, of flat out killing in public places because of poor service. There's even an implied assault of one of the women helpers by the man she's assigned to, because helpers are killed for resisting. They are like some of the trustees harm them gleefully. it gets wild. But Jay and his friends, as these books go, right? Jay and his friends don't take it lying down, and neither do the adults. Some do, but they have to figure out how to save themselves before the violence from the trustees gets them killed, gets our main characters killed. There are so many levels to this book, you all. So it takes a look at what a type of modern day servitude, modern day slavery, if you will, could look like. The helpers are predominantly people of color. Jay and his friends are all black, but they mention people who are Hispanic or Latin. They mention people who are Middle Eastern. People run the gamut, and most of these are helpers. And many of the visitors and trustees are wealthy and white. And these helpers are eventually put into a place where they have very little, if any, autonomy, and they become subject to constant surveillance. There are drones flying around watching these people, and these drones are poised to attack if these people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. They're under the control of the powers that be in Karloff County, and it was interesting, and it reminded me the way that they were so open with it, the way that they were very gleefully causing harm to some people. It made me think of back when you would hear about when people were lynched, Black Americans were lynched, and sometimes the white people in those places would make it a picnic. They would, go and watch these public these entities of harm against people like it was something to eat a piece of chicken over. This book also kind of shows and highlights the effects of climate issues. Environmental issues and climate disasters are one of the causes of the world's chaos outside of Karloff County. Damaging natural disasters like tornadoes and hurricanes and fires that completely wipe out land and affect food sources, right? Like if there's no land, you can't grow food. And, I know we talk about a lot of the food here in the U.S. that's, built in labs, but the reality is a lot of it is grown regardless of what's put on it while it's being grown. And so, so when you have nothing to plant, there's no food, and that obviously makes for a chaotic and a chaotic public, and a public that wants because they need. And then, there's that lack of government trust. So outside of Karloff County, citizens are attacking their government officials because they're not doing what they were elected to do. We also, though, as usual, see resistance. Jay and his friends, Zeke and Connie and Seychelle, those are his main friends, but some other folks, they fight back physically against this tyranny. And it's hard, and there's close calls, but, it's you don't take this kind of stuff lying down. And I think there's a history of folks, African Americans and other persons of color, who fight in resistance to tyranny and to supremacy, because essentially that's what this is. This is people who think that they are above others because of their money and perceived intelligence. Each of these characters deal with these different things in different ways. For example, the family that Jay has to concierge for, they're actually a Black family, wealthy enough, obviously, to live in this place. And we see through their interactions with Jay, especially the interactions that Jay has with the man of this family, how money can make people, in this particular instance, Black people, view themselves differently, as if other Black people just aren't working hard enough to rise. The guy, I can't remember their name, but he talks a lot about just like the laziness of Black people, right? Even though he himself is a person who was raised into money, was pretty much given a company, but it is the laziness of Black people, and that puts them in the positions that Jay and his family apparently were put in. And then you even have stuff like in instances like with his friend Seychelle, who is biracial, Black and white, and she's the heir to the Karlov County fortune, but she's biracial, and her white racist grandfather holds that against her in a way that's really, really sad. But it's just, it's another point to the themes of this book, how even her, even her attachment to Carlo County doesn't save her just because of the color of her skin, or the color of her father's skin, as it were. This was I'm long winded now, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I really like this book. I especially once you get to the middle and it starts, when things like, once you realize what is really happening in Karlov County, you really get to this point of like, what is going on? And so I do recommend it, even for folks who are not big fans of YA. I liked it. I did. I'll be back next week with a book called Ring Shout. It is not subtle. It's a horror novel that calls back to the Ku Klux Klan and that movie Birth of a Nation. We all know what that is. It's a short read, but with the subject matter, I know it's going to pack a punch. So I'll be back with that next week. Until then, thank you for watching.